Wow, temperatures have really plummeted this week. Take last night for example, we had temperatures of -1 degree Celsius or 30 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, our bananas have done fantastic this summer, but it's now time that we need to think about winterizing our bananas. Now there's loads of different methods for overwintering bananas, but in this episode we are going to look at a few of those and what I am going to do to try and overwinter my banana, and that's all coming up after this. I'm Tony O'Neill and this is UK Year We Grow. On this channel we deal with all things gardening, poultry keeping and beekeeping. If it's your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button and bell icon to be notified each time we put out new content just like this. There are many cultivars of banana and they all have different growing conditions. Some are more hardy like the Tubebuddy, and then others like this dwarf Cavendish behind you are not so hardy. Now I set myself a massive challenge this year, and that was to see whether I could grow an edible fruit on a banana in the UK without any extra heat. That is destined to fail. However, we now need to see if we can winterize this banana, because if we can get it through, we are in with a chance. Most of the UK falls into 3 growing zones, which is 7, 8 and 9. Now, it's really important to select the right plant for your growing conditions, and bananas here, because we're in zone 8 mostly around this area, then bananas don't do well, because that means that we have really cold minus temperatures and frost for long periods of a time. So with that in mind, selecting the right plant is really important. Now the very hardy Tubebuddy would do really well in this climate because it can get down to -10, and it's rare that we go below that for long periods at a time. The hardy Tubebuddy is the most cold tolerant banana plant there is. This plant can get down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit as long as it's properly mulched. It can also be grown in all 50 states of the USA and the UK. However, this plant is an ornamental plant, and although it will give you the tropical feel in a garden, it will not produce edible fruits. This plant can also grow up to 5 meters tall, which would take it around about 10 years. So although there are banana plants out there that can deal with cold climates, and the previous is ideal for tropical gardens and things like that in the UK, if we want edible fruits, then we have to pick a different cultivar, and I chose the dwarf Cavendish for this. And a couple of reasons for that. The first is because the weather in the UK here, we get very mild and short summers. And with that in mind, I needed a plant that had the potential to fruit relatively quickly. But also, because we have really cold winters, I needed a plant I could grow inside to protect it from the worst of the weather. So these plants are quite fussy when it comes to their care. And although the leaves are large and grow relatively quickly, they are very weak and susceptible to frost damage. As you can see, we had a frost last night and it's gone. All the leaves are dead, including a brand new one that's coming through up here. I wouldn't even suggest trying to keep this in a cold room through the winter, because you will find that you will wake up one morning to a mushy mess. But against all odds, I'm going to try and get this through in a polytunnel through the winter, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to attempt that. Now, I am pretty much writing the fate off to this plant based on some ideas, and I'm hoping that I can prevent frost from getting to it. I'm hoping that we can keep the stalk, but I can't see it happening. Everything inside me is screaming, dig it up and take it home. But when I set out to get this plant growing, I said that I wanted to see if it's possible to keep it in a polytunnel all year round. and that's what we're going to do. Now, I have taken some small cuttings that were also frost damaged, and we took some earlier in the year as backups, and they will be taken home so that we will still have a plant to replace this one if it does go completely. I'm going to do some extreme measures here today and try and prevent that from happening though. The first thing I'm doing here is raising the base. The plant was originally planted on a mound of soil, and I found this year that I had to dig out the edges of the soil to stop the water from overflowing during watering. By raising the sides, I can add a layer of organic matter. This will stop the overflowing and will also add additional insulation to the basal plate and roots. We can now backfill this section, being careful not to take the soil level too high to prevent rotting off. Next, we can cut the leaves of the plant and use these as a mulch on the ground around the base of the plant. And if you haven't seen how much it has grown over the last few months, I will add a link in the cards and description. It's such a shame as this plant was looking awesome a few days ago. This will leave us with just a stem. I would really like to get this through the winter if possible, as it will really give the plant a great start next season. I'm going to wrap the stem with fleece to start. This will not be tightly wrapped, but will have quite a few layers. Next, a frame is built so that we can wrap the plant in bubble wrap. And as I wrap the frame, I fill it with straw in order to create an insulation layer. Keep doing this right to the top and seal it off with a cap. So here we have it, folks. The banana is now insulated. Think of it as you going out in the cold. The more layers of clothes you have on, the more warm air is trapped in between each layer and the warmer you are. And that's exactly the same thing I've done here. We had that layer of fleece around the actual stalk itself. Then we've got a real big thick layer of hay and straw. And then around that we have a nice big layer of bubble wrap. Now the only thing I need to do is put a topping over the top of bubble wrap, and all I'm going to do for that is just fold up some bubble wrap and stick it on top of all this straw. Hopefully that will produce enough warmth within there to protect the stalk itself, but if it doesn't, there should be more than enough insulation to protect the basal plate and root system, and maybe they can throw a new one next year if it does rot. So there's just a couple of other things that we might want to consider here, and the first of those is watering through winter. We don't want to be watering this through winter. Now that those leaves have died off, this plant is going to go dormant, and if we water, that's going to be sat around those root system, and that plant's not going to take it up, and it's going to cause the root system to rot off. So we're going to leave it completely dry through the winter, and we'll start watering again early spring. And another thing that we may want to consider as well is that we'll want to shade this over if we have a warm winter's day, because that sun in a polytunnel is amplified through all of these plastics, and it could heat this area up, and if it does that, then it might spurt that plant into growing again, which we want to avoid. We want to keep it dormant. Question of the day: would you do anything different to what I have other than digging it up and taking it home? Put your answers in the comment section below so that we can all learn from each other. I'm Tony O'Neill, this is UK Here We Grow, and remember folks, you reap what you sow. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.